CXO Community. CXO Community.
Pegándole una mirada al reporte de ustedes, a los temas que trabajan en seguridad, digamos, la pregunta inicial, como para empezar a romper un poco el hielo, está relacionada con cuál cree usted que son hoy en día las principales amenazas a las que está sometida una empresa o a los ataques externos, no externos, ataques que pueden llegar a ser más frecuentes.
Más frecuentes. In reality, there are two threats. There are real threats that intend to do damage, and then there are threats to the business expansion. And let me explain. So the threats that intend to do damage today are much more sophisticated, much more targeted, low volume, with a specific intent in mind of obtaining certain valuable information. Some of the threats are just to cause disruption, but most of the threats today that companies are experiencing are with a specific intent to target certain specific information that they are organized to resell to a buyer. So and this means that the traditional methods of security that companies built their defense around needs to change. And the most important thing that needs to change is the amount of visibility that the company can provide of what is happening inside its network.
Okay, so first of all, which are ¿cuáles son las informaciones más sensibles que un posible perpetrador estaría buscando?
It varies. 3 weeks ago, I was visiting a New York financial company that trades $3 trillion a day.
Trillion as in trillion for U.S. people or for the rest of the world?
U.S. people.
Okay,
good question. $3 trillion a day. And so I asked the question, well, you must be very concerned about losing, anyone getting access to that information. The answer was no, because once a trade is completed, it is transparent to both parties, and the information is almost valueless 5 seconds after the trade has happened. That's one extreme. Other businesses, the information that is there includes client lists, intellectual property related to trade secrets. I mean, the secret formula of Coca-Cola, right?
Which is not that secret, but...
Yeah, well, it's still, nobody can reproduce it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But it's sensitive customer information, sensitive financial information. We all know what happens when people trade in advance on financial information. And it's sensitive intellectual property of the company.
Okay, great. And how you said that companies need to change the way they protect themselves. So in which way they should change?
Yeah, how should they change?
Thank you.
Let me go back to your first question, though, and I said there are two threats. One is the directed threat. The other is the indirect threat. What is the indirect threat? The indirect threat is that companies are trying to compete aggressively in the industry they are in, and they are facing two trends that challenge the ability to do that securely. One is cloud computing.
Yeah.
Everybody is interested. Everybody is interested in lowering costs and being more business agile.
Sorry.
No problem. Everybody is interested in lowering their costs and being more business agile by using cloud computing.
Yeah.
The number one reason that companies don't do more cloud computing is because of concerns about security. How do I make sure the use of the cloud doesn't cause a contamination, a loss, or theft of information?
You were talking about cloud.
So cloud computing, a big business enabler, but a real caution point on being able to do it securely. The other big indirect threat is the explosion of personal devices and their use for both personal and professional work. So the consumerization of IT. And companies at first thought they could resist this trend and limit the use and access of these devices to company information. All the CIOs are now recognizing that this is impossible. Now, people want to use their devices at work and at home for personal things seamlessly, and they have to find a way to allow that to happen securely. So the bring your own device, BYOD phenomenon, is something every CIO I speak to brings up as a top issue. I was in Washington 2 weeks ago visiting with Department of Defense customers who until 6 months ago said we will never allow personal devices, on Department of Defense facilities, and they are now saying we cannot stop this trend. So these are indirect threats to the traditional security defense that companies set up. Cloud and mobility, bring your own device. Those, in addition to the targeted attacks that companies are experiencing today, mean the fundamental approach to security that companies take have to change. Enable the business and protect the business at the same time.
Great. Last month there was this Gartner conference here. Once a year we have the IT scenario in Latin America. So their main concerns and lectures were about cloud and mobility.
Oh,
so
okay.
how do you think perhaps stopping the cloud phenomena is not possible, as it is not possible to stop the mobility and people bringing their own Blackberries and iPhones and iPads to work.
Right.
So, but cloud offers alternatives, private cloud versus public cloud hybrid models.
Yes.
So how do you think CIOs should address their company security in the cloud model to get the advantages of this model and the security clearance and levels they need?
You phrased the question very well, so that was well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what we are observing is a natural evolution. The first begins with segmenting what is business critical that should not leave the premise of the company. So there are certain applications, certain data that should stay on-premise and not be sourced to the cloud. And even in that data center of the company, you may not want to virtualize that data center until you are certain that you are going to be able to segment and zone without any cross-contamination of information. But technology for security purposes is available today to allow you to do that. And Cisco has technology there that we introduced 6 months ago. The Virtual Services Gateway allows you, in a virtualized data center, to assure no cross-contamination of data. When you go out to a public cloud or a hybrid cloud, the first steps are usually with information and applications that you feel are low risk if there is any chance of contamination or threat or theft. We are working with both enterprises that are sourcing to the cloud and with cloud providers such as Amazon, and providing them with the best advanced security products we can to allow customers to build the confidence. Two things need to be in, or three things. Decide on what business information and applications you want to go out with. Pick a reliable cloud supplier, and you have to do the due diligence on their security capability. And you have to put in place your own security that controls the traffic to and from the cloud. So the ingress and egress from your own enterprise.
Yeah, what you're saying is that CIOs shouldn't rely their security parameters on the cloud provider, but have an in-house domestic team working on this 24/7?
Yes, I mean, yes. Today, that is still. Now, it also depends on, very transparently, it also depends on the size of the customer. A smaller or medium-sized business may actually be more secure outsourcing to a cloud provider who has better security than he has in his own company.
Yeah.
So there's a good argument to be said that for small and medium businesses, going to the cloud is more secure than doing it yourself, because they don't have their own capabilities and infrastructure. Bigger enterprises, typically for them, it's a bigger risk to go outside.
Great. So just to close the cloud security item, if I understood correctly, you're speaking about compartmentalization of the cloud and the services provided.
Yes.
Okay. So which areas do you think are more sensitive and should be compartmentalized, isolated from the rest of the cloud?
I think it really varies on the company. Are you a bank? Are you a manufacturer? Depending on what the value chain is of your business, there are going to be different parts of the value chain that that you want to protect. If you're predominantly a marketing company, the most important thing to you is protecting the confidentiality of your customer database, right? If you're a high-tech manufacturer, the most important thing to you is your intellectual property.
Great. So, last final question. I forgot there was one pending on cloud. Which applications do you think, again, should be compartmentalized? The specific applications, for instance, payroll applications?
Yeah. So usually in customer data and employee data are things that are typically compartmentalized for obvious reasons. Financial data is usually also separately compartmentalized. After that, it really depends on the business again. You know.
Right. What about mobility? The second main threat, indirect main threat. So, mobile applications are being developed day by day to cover different issues or necessities from the companies and the users. But still, every smartphone, every tablet has Wi-Fi connection. Wi-Fi connection makes them susceptibles de ser amenazados. So, but you can't stop CIOs and employees to have their own BlackBerry.
Right.
So, and you can't make them live at the door. So, how do you address this?
Yeah. So, we have worked very hard to address this. We have assembled a complete solution that allows a company to identify when any user is connecting to the network with a laptop or iPad or whatever it might be. Identify the user, say who it is, identify, then authenticate who is this person. Okay, is it really that person who is coming in and asking for access? What does that person want to do? What application is he trying to access? With what kind of device? Is it a laptop? Is it an iPad? What time of day is it? And where is this person located? Is he inside the building of the company? Is he inside the Argentina? Is he in China? Is it the middle of the night? You know, the ability to answer all those questions at the point of access to the network. And we call this our identity services engine. And this is a product we just released 5 months ago now. And I just met with some of our sales team here in Buenos Aires, and the feedback was, wow, every customer wants to talk about this. Because once we have that information, the identity service engine is able to apply a policy that the company has put in place that says, this employee works in finance, is allowed to have access to these applications if he is inside the building. If he's outside the building, he can only have access to certain applications. If he's not on his own laptop that we have previously identified, he doesn't get access to anything. So you can write a higher level policy language that allows you to make those specific decisions. Once it is entering the network across a CISCO switch, we can actually tag the traffic of that user and follow that user with a specific tag all the way through the network and always know where that user is going and whether or not he is allowed to go to particular zones of the network or not. So some very high degree of sophistication.
Yeah, I think you pretty much answered all my questions. But how do you, in that context, which is the limit between protecting the company data and there's a hay una línea muy finita entre controlar qué es lo que hace el empleado y pasar a controlar lo que hace el empleado. Me refiero a temas de privacidad personal, o sea, ¿cómo se maneja eso? Una solución que es tan específica para saber qué es lo que hace.
Most companies are taking as a matter of policy that if an employee or a customer or a supplier or a contractor wants to use the company network and have access, they are clicking on terms and conditions that says anything that they do is visible and is allowed to, now, visible to the company, right? Shared with anybody else, that's a different story, right?
What about email.
Yes.
Can you control if the employee sends attachments or emails with sensitive or not, or just information from the company?
Yes.
Are you able to control that? How do you handle also email privacy?
Yes. I have to recognize that, as a CISCO employee, anytime I write an email, even if it's on my Yahoo account,
you think it twice?
I realize the company can have visibility to that. Because I am connected with Cisco's AnyConnect client, whenever I open my laptop, I am automatically reconnecting to the company network. The benefit to the company of that is if anything I do, all of the protection capabilities are always in place. So even if I'm doing something personal, I can't get contaminated and then later when I connect to the company network, contaminate the company, because my protection is always on. The AnyConnect client creates the VPN tunnel back to the company automatically. Yeah. It also opens a web filtering, web control automatically. So again, even if I'm doing something personal, it is filtering and protecting me from malware from the web. So there are means of protecting the company extremely well, but and our email protection product allows for data loss, provides data loss protection capability that identifies signatures of things that shouldn't leave the company.
Confidential?
Confidential things, and can stop them, right? So.
Great. What about social networks?
Yeah, we believe that social networks at work are that work and personal life have come together at work, and we all work in our personal time, and we all play at our work time, right? It happens inevitably, and as a result of that, we allow, for example, employees at Cisco to use Facebook, but we are also able, with our technology, to know what applications they're using at Facebook, and there are certain applications within Facebook that aren't allowed. We provide the technology to allow companies to put in place policies like that. So we believe social collaboration tools, social media tools are going to happen on company devices and company time, but companies should have the right to control, set their own limits as to what they permit.
Okay, but what about sharing information on social networks? Because you perhaps can control or can see what the user visits, but what about what he posts? For instance, he makes a mistake and he posts sensitive information. Are you able to control that?
The data loss protection capabilities can identify certain types of, it's an area of gray as to what they can and cannot identify. It's a danger. It happens all the time to companies. It's an exposure. You asked earlier, what are some of the biggest threats? Most security professionals will tell you the biggest threat is lack of employee education about security. Whether it's physical security, in guarding their laptop, or physical security of threats on the street, but more, just as importantly, process security, being security conscious in what information you send to whom and how. So education of the employee base is probably the fastest return on investment that companies can make for security.
Do you have any recommendations to CIOs on that?
We don't sell that service. So
No, but in the report, which is the role education plays?
I think it's, my recommendation to a CIO is to put in place a security policy and require every employee to take the course to an online, there are companies that provide online courses on this, and take a test. And you need to pass the test. That would be my recommendation to a CIO.
Okay. So I was thinking about your product suit.
Yeah.
And was wondering a very annoying question, but it's still a valid question. So what makes your products better than the competition's ones?
Mm-hmm. A lot of hard work. We believe that security needs to be an ingredient in the entire IT network of a company. We think the number one advantage we have in our commitment to the security business, which is 5% of the total Cisco business. The number one advantage we have is that we are providing at the same time to our customers their switching, their routing, their collaboration technology, their mobile, their wireless technology. We actually really understand how the customer's networks work because we make all these products. Even if they don't buy them from us, we are in the business of the enterprise IT platform. And by having a great understanding of how those IT platforms work and the kind of applications that customers want to drive on those allows us to design and innovate our products to be not only great security products, but ones that are integrated into the network and are very cost effective.
Which are the benefits of an integrated solution like yours?
The benefits are lower cost, easier to scale with time.
That's...
The easier to upgrade, and what our customers are asking for today is they deal with a lot of licenses, a lot of software upgrades. They want an automatic process that they don't have to manage, that their security gets upgraded on a regular basis. And by it being integrated into the network and connected to the network, that makes it much easier to do.
Okay. What about, earlier we were speaking about direct threats companies are subjected to.
Yeah.
So the other day I was speaking with people from Fortinet, and they had this ranking of major threats companies are subjected to. So the question will be, do you have any advice on companies on those major direct threats they may suffer, and how should they address their security concerns on this?
So that's a big question.
Yeah.
But good. I think the number one thing companies need to do is recognize that the security paradigm has changed. I think the industry generally recognizes that they need to work from a zero trust model. The old security model was certain parts of the network were trusted, others were not. Certain users were trusted, others were not. Today the premise is there is no trust. There's zero trust on anything. And therefore, anything going through the network needs to be identified, categorized, and given a specific permission about what it is allowed to do. And that is the architecture that we have assembled that we call SecureX, and we launched last February at the big RSA conference in the United States. And SecureX does three things. It takes contextual information, which is the who, what, where, when, why, takes that information from different access points in the network, sends it up to a policy engine, the identity services engine, which makes a decision, and the identity service engine then directs the enforcement, the yes, no, selective access, to the different points in the network where the customer wants to put it. It may be in the data center, it may be at the edge of the network, it may be at the firewall, so a distributed network capability. Because the traditional perimeters of the network are gone. Between cloud and mobility, you cannot define the perimeter of the network anymore. You just need to assume everything on the network is untrusted until I have given it identification and authorization about what it is allowed to do, and be able to enforce my decision at the right point in the network.
Okay. What about solutions for mobility?
Yes. So we are working very hard on mobility. Our AnyConnect client now has 35 million users and is incorporated into all the major portable computers. And we're now working on mobile devices and working on the iPads and tablets so that the AnyConnect can be incorporated in there. What I find exciting when we have customers visit us in San Jose, they often say, well, we were visiting Apple yesterday as part of our visit to Silicon Valley, and they told us, you know, when it comes to mobile security, you need to go talk to Cisco. So we have a very close working relationship with Apple, as an example, because we are developing our AnyConnect client rapidly into all the different devices from Android, from Apple, and others that are being put out. So it's a very aggressive campaign.
¿Cuáles son las debilidades más importantes de los dispositivos mobile en cuanto a seguridad?
One of the biggest challenges is it's a rapidly moving industry. with new devices coming out all the time. And it's very difficult for customers and for suppliers like ourselves to stay caught up and make sure that we are accurately capturing and being able to secure the devices. The next frontier of threats is going to be mobile malware. So there's still very little understanding about how best to protect on mobile malware, because our devices are small, they can't take a heavy client, and the organized crime industry that today is driving the threats onto the network has yet to organize itself around mobile devices. But they will, because we're using the mobile device now as a payment tool. The mobile device is becoming a much more important and sensitive piece of equipment. And without a doubt, the hackers are going to be going at the mobile devices. That's the next frontier.
This is the final one. What about application control in mobility? Are you able to control which application the client downloads to his mobile or to his tablet? How do you protect the employee from downloading a potentially malware disguised as a solution, I don't know, background picture for the iPhone?
Yeah. So yes, we have two solutions there. One is a traditional appliance-based solution. Again, if the employee is connected to the company network automatically, all traffic to the web is directed through that appliance, and it's screened and filtered. And we have an incredibly sophisticated threat intelligence capability that is constantly updating these devices with the latest known threats. So we have sensors connected to over 1 million devices at customers around the world. And when those devices report detecting something suspicious, they send it back into our sensor-based data center. So we are looking at 13 billion emails every day. We're looking at 4 billion web requests every day that are coming in from our customer devices. And we are able to scan, and whenever one of our devices identifies something suspicious, we can investigate it, we can create an algorithm for it, and feed the information back out. So this threat intelligence capabilities is something that is part of the product when we sell it. It's an incredible value add because it's real-time update. If a customer in London's firewall detects a threat and we confirm it, 5 minutes later, all of our firewalls worldwide that customers have this updated information. Now, back to your question. I think what your question was back on mobile device. So we have the appliance solution. We also have a cloud-based solution called ScanSafe. And we just are expanding that capability to South America now. We opened our ScanSafe tower in Brazil last week. We're having some discussions about Argentina now as well. And this directs any request the user makes when you have the AnyConnect with ScanSafe client on the device. Anytime you request to the web, it goes to the cloud through the ScanSafe tower and gets filtered and controlled to make sure no malware is coming to the device.
How big is your real-time scanning network? I mean, in people scale, you have a team of 200, 300 people just receiving samples from around the world of threats. How big is your team?
The threat intelligence team is 500 people around the world. It's a very big team.
And how many samples do you pick per day?
It comes back to all those emails and web requests and
malware samples. Malicious samples.
Malicious samples. It's a good question. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. I'll have to go back. A lot. A lot. Yes. A lot.
Yeah. Okay. Just we'll keep the numbers on how many emails you scan.
Okay.
So, and how long did you say was the time frame between you detect a new threat and you update all the systems?
5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I think that will be it.
Okay.
CISCO Community.